Welcome to Great Lakes Church. It is such an honor to have you here with us. If you don't know who we are, we're a community of people in Southeast Wisconsin looking to make life a little bit easier. It's no surprise that knowing how to do the right thing or choosing the right path in our relationships or even just getting started in following Jesus can be hard. So we're aiming to make it a little easier by being here for you along the way. If you want to know more about who we are, what we do, and why we do it, you can head to greatlakeschurch.com or download the Great Lakes Church app wherever you have your app store. But in the meantime, we hope this talk encourages you to take the next step in your personal life, your relationships, or your spiritual journey. Enjoy.
Hey, good to see you. Thanks. You know what this is? I almost dropped it. This is a dangerous thing. They sell it to you like it's going to make everything better and that it's going to save you and protect you for only a little while. Here's what they don't tell you about filters when you're dumb and you buy a house. That there's one in your air system and that every once in a while you need to replace it. You need to put a different one in there because over time, all of the dirt and the grime is going to hit the filter and clog up. And eventually the air won't flow the way it should, or it will be pushing dirty, nasty stuff up into your house and you'll be breathing this in. Here's the good news. It's not just in your house either. It's in your car too. And you know when you go to get your oil changed and they say, you should change the filter, and you're like, we'll get it next time. You shouldn't get it next time. Get it now because you've left it in there for so long, it's gotten clogged up, and now it's actually doing harm versus good. There's a lot of things in life like that, right? You do enough of it, it becomes a bad thing, where it may have started as a good thing and a helpful thing, and an add-on, it becomes a subtractor later. Isolation is a lot like this, isn't it? Like, there are times in our life where we need to filter people out. We're going through something difficult, and we need to get alone, or we need to get less with people, and so we put up our guard, is what we would normally call it, but really what we're doing is we're just filtering out a few people in the most inner circle is the only ones that get through. I lived this in my life over the last few years. When I found out that the marriage I did not want to end was going to end, I was so embarrassed and ashamed and angry and sad and lost and all of the things that I put up a filter. I decided I was going to remove myself from a lot of friendships. I was going to remove myself from a lot of relationships that had been a part of my life for a long time, but I couldn't handle the proximity at that point. I just wanted to kind of be alone and lick my wounds and heal what I anticipated to be a very long time. But the longer I was alone, the more toxic the loneliness became. Because in life in general, I know, we need other people. So there are times, there are seasons, there are moments where we need this. But if we keep this up for too long, that isolation will begin to actually harm us. And that's what happened to me. All of a sudden, I wasn't healing, I was just lonely. I wasn't getting better, I was getting worse. And that loneliness was starting to feed into other things that I thought would help, but they weren't helping. Things that I thought would make it better, and they weren't. And it wasn't until a really good friend of mine when I told him what was happening in my life, said, you need to go back to church. You need people in your life. As the proverbial stuff hits the fan, you can't do that by yourself. You can't do that on your own. That good thing that felt good for maybe a few months had become detrimental to me. And we do this all the time, right? For you, maybe it was a divorce as well. For you, maybe it was the death of a loved one, the loss of a job, an illness that you faced, a broken relationship with somebody that was really close for a long time, a lead pastor leaving, a campus closing, right? We all have a thing where we would go, what feels natural and safe and good is to pull back and remove myself from all of the people because this is going to hurt. But what we learn over here in the corner by ourselves hurts more. And so what we do is we settle for what I call life less. We become lifeless in that the things that make our heart beat fast and get us excited and help us get up in the morning and get out and do all the stuff, that starts to deteriorate too. But in the end, we're actually getting less life than we were before because the filter is now clogged up and it's pushing nothing but dirt through. And we're suffering the consequences of that. The good news for me was I had a few friends that broke through the filter and were able to speak truth into my life and encourage me. The good news for me and for you is that Jesus comes along and says, listen, I've got a whole new way for you to live. And it is better than anything you could imagine, but you cannot do it alone. It's not going to work in isolation. Here's what Jesus said. This is what he promised us. That promise sounded like this. The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. But my purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. Side note, he did not say to make them rich. He said to give them a rich, a satisfying life. I don't ever want to forget that that's what Jesus said. He says the whole reason I came, my purpose, was to give you a life better than the one you have. Because a lot of us would, if you were polled, if someone sat down and said, hey, how's life? Is it rich? Is it satisfying? Odds are the answer is not really. And here comes God himself saying, the whole reason I came is to give you a rich and satisfying life. But, like I said, it cannot be experienced in isolation. You and I, we're not going to get that on our own. And for every introvert in the room, I hear you already. I can hear what you're saying under your breath. I don't like people. I don't need people. I really didn't want to be here tonight because there's people here. I get it. Believe it or not, I'm slightly introverted. I know I need to get alone to recharge. So I'm not saying you can never be alone. I'm not saying you can never go home and shut the door and Netflix. I'm not saying that. But what I am going to say, what I'm going to say over and over again, is that this promise from Jesus must be experienced in community. It's going to require people around you to some degree. Part of what we talked about last week was following Jesus is hard. It's not easy. We don't say that out loud enough. We talk a lot about, hey, following Jesus is awesome and you should do it because it's going to make life great, and it does, but it doesn't mean that life is always easy or fun or sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes it's hard. And to still get the promise of Jesus, this rich and satisfying life, he's going to say, you got to do this with people. I'd go so far as to say our best chance at getting closer to Jesus is with other people. The times where I have grown most in my relationship with him, the times where I would say my faith has been the most stretched and I felt the most encouraged and the most cheered on and the most alive in my faith, it has always been in community. It's always been with a few other people that are on that journey with me. Have you ever done a road trip by yourself? Not that fun. Introverts, I know. You're thinking it's awesome. I get it. But even as a slight one, it's not my favorite. It's fun when you've got other people in the car and you're singing the songs together and you're stopping at the gas station and exchanging who's getting what snacks and let's split them and arguing over who's paying for the gas and all that stuff like that. That's the best part of a road trip with other people. Most experiences in life are the most fun when there's other people experiencing it with us. Now, there's this moment in Jesus' life I'm going to tell you straight up, it's my favorite moment. And it's the one I love teaching on. So if I teach on this again in like 3 months, forgive me. I get super excited about this moment when Jesus is teaching in a house. And these friends bring their friend to meet him. And this is how it goes. Some men came carrying a paralyzed man on a sleeping mat. Let's stop right there because it's easy to read that first sentence and not fully grasp what just got said. Have you ever tried to carry a sleeping child? That is not easy. I don't care if you are Gold's Gym member extraordinaire. Carrying a body that does not carry itself at all is a really difficult thing to do. And this is a full-grown man, paralyzed. And he's being carried by his 4 friends. Now understand where Jesus is not where they started. They have carried him a long way. We don't like giving our friends rides to places in our car. They are carrying this dude miles and miles. And if you ever look at pictures of the terrain where Jesus is in and around Jerusalem and up to Galilee, that is not like taking a stroll down a flat sidewalk. We're up and down and over and under. All the while, they're carrying their friend. This could not have been more exhausting or treacherous or maybe even dangerous. Now, we team lift everything these days. Like, right? You can't buy a Kleenex box anymore without it saying on there, hey, you need to team lift this thing because we understand it can hurt us if we're not careful. We move the wrong way. We overestimate what we're capable of getting up off the ground. And the reason this is so important is to fully understand what happens next. That when they arrive at the house, it's not like they just got up out of bed and took a fresh shower. They are completely wrung out. And this is what they're greeted with. We read, they tried to take him inside to Jesus, but they couldn't reach him because of the crowd. There's just too many people there. It goes on. So they went up to the roof. I'll let that sit there a minute. They went up to the roof and took off some tiles. Then they lowered the sick man on his mat down into the crowd right in front of Jesus. Now, don't breeze through this. This is the best. These guys are so stinking tired. And they come up to the dead end of dead ends. There are hundreds of people, not just in the house, but pouring out of the house, into the front yard, out onto the street. There's no way they're ever going to get this guy who's laying flat on a mat. They're never going to get him in there. It would have been hard enough to get him through the door if nobody was there, but there's this crowd there. And somebody in the group, one of the 4 goes, we could go up there. Now, if I was there, I'd have been like, you can go up there. I'm tired. Let's just wait till the crowd dies down. No. We can do this. Now, a lot of times in the Middle East, there would be steps that would go up on the outside to a rooftop. And that may be what this house was like. We don't know for sure, but either way, they're either climbing up some downspout with a guy, or they're going up some stairs with a guy. And then they get up there, and instead of like one of them sneaking through and being like, Jesus, we've got a private meeting set up for you up on the roof, they decide we're going to tear a hole in the roof. How would you feel? We got group season come up. Can you imagine if you were group season and you're in the middle of your Bible study, you're maybe praying and you feel drywall start to land, and then you look up and there's a hole in the ceiling? And then it says they lower their friend down in front of Jesus. That's some guts right there. We're talking about the most famous person in all of Israel right now. And you cut to the front of the line? You wreck the host's home? And then you interrupt what Jesus is doing? Just imagine this. He's teaching, the drywall starts, and down comes a guy, and they lower him. It wouldn't have surprised me if they said they dropped the dude down in there because, again, they're so tired, but they lower him right down in front of Jesus. This moment does not happen if there weren't friends. He doesn't get to the house without his friends. He doesn't get to the roof without his friends. He doesn't get to Jesus without his friends, without this small community. And he doesn't get by the roadblock without his friends either. One of the most comforting things for me, because I'm directionally challenged, I have lived here my whole life and I don't know how to get anywhere. Like, I get lost going to places I've been 10 times before. It's ridiculous. So I'm the weirdo that has GPS on in my neighborhood because I'm just comfortable that way. And I will inevitably take a wrong turn. And the best thing that anybody ever invented was this map thing is so smart that it just goes, rerouting. We're going to get you there. Not the way we thought originally, but there's another way. And this is what his friends do. They come up to the house, they're carried him all this way, and they go, rerouting. Do you know how many times I've needed people in my life that say life is not going the way you thought it would go? You're not going in the direction you want to be going. We will help you reroute. We will come alongside of you. We will walk with you. There is another way. And what's so cool is this is sprinkled throughout Scripture. It's not just in this moment with Jesus. It is everywhere, including the book of Ecclesiastes, if you've ever read it. But I want to read you one part where it kind of breaks this down. You'll hear this in weddings a lot. Likewise, two people lying close together can keep each other warm, but how can one be warm alone? You've been there. I mean, we live here. Look where we live. You've been cold. And you know that's not easy. You see, part of what happens with community, part of the reason we need community is for comfort. It's the moments where life takes a turn that we didn't expect, or we go in a direction that we didn't know, and we feel lost, and someone comes along and says, I'll help. That's comfort. It's those moments where we feel like we're out in the cold and we're freezing and we're alone and it's never going to get better, that someone comes along and says, I'm here, and you're not alone. We'll do this together. You see, what's amazing about loving a God who loves us so much is that he knows exactly what we need to live the life that he has offered us. He brings community along to help us go. Now, my favorite part of this story with Jesus, it's all the things, but what Jesus does next, what happens next, is it's just totally cool. This is what Jesus says. Seeing their faith. Jesus is seeing their faith, not his faith. I love to think about Jesus smiling because we always have pictures of Jesus very serious. But I just think when the guy comes down here, Jesus is just going, He's just smiling, ear to ear. Like this is awesome. And imagine the guys, 4 heads, up at the top of the roof, peering in, looking down like, oh man, we're in so much trouble. And Jesus looks up right at them. And he's not angry. He's not mad. He's marveling at what they've done. He's marveling at the idea that this man had some people around him that loved him so much that they did whatever it took to get him to Jesus. So it says he saw their faith, and then he says, young man, your sins are forgiven. And if you know the rest of the story, this man gets up and walks. But the miracle is sometimes what overshadows this moment where Jesus is looking at them and he goes, it's the faith of the friends that has compelled me to forgive and heal. I think of it like this. It's the foundation of your house or your apartment building. It's the unseen hero. The house does not stand without a foundation. In fact, Jesus told another story about this. The guy that built the house on the rock, the guy that built the house on the sand. Without a firm foundation, none of our homes would still be standing after the last couple weeks we've had with the wind and the snow and the rain and the freezing temperatures. It would all be a mess. But that foundation that's under the ground and you see about that much of in your house, that's what's holding it up. And sometimes in our life, we need people that are unseen but are holding us up. We need people that go, I'm going to be praying for you. And I'm going to be showing up for you. And I'm going to be consistent for you. And one day you might get to the place where you're just in awe of what God has done. And behind you is a community of people that got you there. And for me, coming from the hole that I was in, isolated and alone, I have an army of people that got me here. I did not get here by myself. And there were ways that they showed up and ways that they prayed that I didn't even know I needed. That is the power of community. Going back to Ecclesiastes, this is what it says. A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but 2 can stand back to back and conquer. This is like the cool Avengers scene, where they all get back to back and all the enemy is surrounding them and closing in on them, but they are strong because they're not doing it by themselves. And there's going to be moments where they get knocked back. There's going to be moments where they stagger, but they're going to bump into the back of the person that's holding them up. This is where we get the idea of, I got your back. So God knows one of the reasons you need community, one of the reasons I need community is because for us to experience victory, we need someone in the fight with us. We need someone walking through all of the challenges that life is going to throw our way. We cannot do that alone. We need community. Now, here's what's so amazing about community. It does way more than just be a blessing to us and a good thing for us. It actually becomes a thing that attracts other people to what we believe. Because what we have is what everybody wants and what we're all looking for. This is how Jesus said it in John. We've looked at this a ton, but it's so important. He said, love each other just as I've loved you. You should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you're my disciples. You want to show people who I am? You want to show people what you believe? Then love each other well. Have amazing community and an amazing family. And I'm convinced it's because Jesus knew that deep in the middle of everybody's soul, they know they need that. So last week I told you, when people ask me what our discipleship model is, I say, serve. We get people serving other people because we believe you're never more like Jesus than when you serve someone else. After pastors ask other pastors the discipleship question, they ask them this question: okay, so what's your evangelism model? What do you do to tell people about Jesus? What do you do to show people Jesus? And again, we usually think in terms of classes and courses and all kinds of things that we got to check off. I'm still a smart aleck. And now my answer to this is community. This is how we do evangelism. We love each other well, not because that sounds good, but because that's what Jesus said. You want to prove to the world that you're mine? Love each other. You want to show the people that you live around and that you live with and that you work with who I am? Be a community in front of them, and they will start to go, there's something there. There's something there that I know I want. Now, they may be a long way from being able to name it. But on that front end, when they start to see us show up for each other, they lean in a little bit more. Francis Schaeffer, who a lot of you have read, probably great theologian, great thinker, way smarter than me. This is how he put it. Our relationship with each other is the criterion the world uses to judge whether our message is truthful. So do we actually believe what we say we believe or not? They look at how we show up in each other's lives. And then he ends with this sentence: Christian community is the final apologetic. Now, in case you're not familiar, that's a very churchy word. It's a very go to seminary and Bible college word. Apologetic is basically, how do I defend my faith? So if I get into a debate with somebody about who is God or is Jesus legit, do we really believe the scriptures, all these kinds of things, that's an apologetic, how I go about doing that. Francis Schaeffer would say, this is it. You want to defend your faith? Here. Be a great community of people that loves each other well, that sacrifices for one another and serves each other and supports each other and shows up in the lows and celebrates at the highs. Be a community that understands our best chance of getting closer to Jesus is with other people. If you've ever wondered why does Great Lakes make such a big deal about groups? I mean, we've started talking about group leaders now, and we don't even launch groups for another month. It's because of this. We want you to grow closer to Jesus. And that happens best in community. Sometimes that community is really big, sometimes that community is really little. But it's never alone. We weren't made to do life alone. And we weren't made to follow Jesus by ourselves. So here's what I'm going to encourage us to do. Let's stop settling and start choosing less life, less life. Let's decide this lifeless thing where we put up the filter and we block people out because it seems painful or scary to be vulnerable and honest about our questions, about our pain, about the things that we've never really worked through. Let's just filter all this out. We're settling for less life. Let's be a community that goes, we're not going to do this. Now, does this mean you share your nitty-gritty, dirty story with everybody you meet? No, of course not. I didn't tell you all about my life the first day I met you. It took time to build community. But let's not settle to stay way over here on our own. Let's find people that will carry us when we can't carry ourselves. Let's find people that will say, I will give for you whatever is needed. Because that's who God has called me to be. So here's what's cool, what we're doing this year. We're thinking in terms of 3 kinds of groups. Connecting groups, which is just, hey, I need to get some relationships with people in the church. I don't know anybody here, I'm new. After party is a great place for you to start, but then jump into a connecting group. And a lot of these are going to be we're going to do some stuff together. We got a guy that he's going to lead a group this year. It's all about cooking. We're going to cook together. We've got another group that does wine and charcuterie boards. They connect and hang out. We got groups that are going to go do man stuff together. I don't know what those are. I don't get invited. Whatever that means. But it's really about, hey, we're just going to show up. We're not worried about having a deep Bible study at this point. We're just going to build relationships with each other. We're also going to have growing groups, and these are, hey, I'm ready to start exploring my faith a little more deeply. I'm ready to start pushing on it a little bit. I'm ready to dig deeper. I'm ready to start studying Scripture kind of line by line. I'm ready to hear from some other voices and start really thinking through what is it that I believe and who is it that God's called me to. And we're going to help provide the curriculum and the studies and all of that stuff for those groups. And then we're also going to have just serving groups. These are going to be groups that like go build beds together with Sleep in Heavenly Peace. These are going to be people that go serve at the Shalom Center and do the soup kitchen together. And we're going to have all these opportunities where, because here's the deal for me, I like to do something with. That's where I really build relationships. This is especially true. If you're a guy, I don't mean to stereotype, but most guys, we don't like to sit down and talk face to face. I invited a guy to have coffee, and his response was, I haven't done a coffee date in my whole adult life. I'm not about to start. If you want to have breakfast, we could do that. But like, let's go have an objective, right? That's what serving groups are really going to be about. But the whole point is start building relationships that go outside of these rows. You'll hear this a lot around here. We believe that the best stuff happens in circles, not rows. Getting in a living room, getting at a service center, getting on a hike together where you're kind of circled up and you're doing that together, it's really hard. I mean, you probably don't know the name of half the people sitting in your row. It's just a fact. And when we're done in here, we're going to go out in the lobby and we're going to eat a lot of my favorite foods, and you're going to judge me, but that's okay. But it would be easy to like just leave, right? And not really ever connect with anybody. We have to get into a circle. That's where we're going to find that kind of community that we've been talking about all night long. I want to close with a quote by one of my favorite authors. You've probably seen his name on all kinds of things. So like a lot of times you'll see his books in the bathroom. I don't know why people put his books in the bathroom, but he usually writes really short chapters, so it starts to make sense. But his name's Max Lucado, and if you've ever read any of his stuff, you know that this guy, he probably literally has breakfast with Jesus every morning. He just seems to really, really get it. This is what he said about community. This is a longer quote. He says, questions can make hermits out of us, driving us into hiding. Yet the cave has no answers. Christ distributes courage through community. He dissipates doubts through fellowship. He never deposits all knowledge in one person, but distributes pieces of the jigsaw puzzle to many. When you interlock your understanding with mine and we share our discoveries, when we mix, mingle, confess, and pray, Christ speaks. This is why I say our best chance at getting closer to Jesus is with other people. We were not meant to do life. We were not meant to follow Jesus solo. So my challenge to you in the weeks ahead is join a group. It's really that simple. And we don't want you to join a group so we can say we got a lot of people in groups. We want you to join a group so that you can experience the kind of growth that we're all looking for and the kind of community that we're all dying for. Let me pray. Lord Jesus, I so wish I could have been in that house when that guy came down through the roof. And my guess is that John didn't write everything that was said or everything that was done in that moment, but I just imagine that you knew that that was going to be a model for how other people could get close to you, that would be a model for us to follow you, that we would need other people. And we're so grateful that you have provided us a church family that's full of incredible people who will give so selflessly and show up when it's inconvenient and love us when we're not lovable. So my prayer for each of my friends is that they would find real, deep, life-changing, Jesus-following community this year. Because we really do believe it's our best chance of getting closer to you, and we want nothing more than to be closer to you. We love you. Amen. Hey, before we head out, thanks for being here. Love you guys. So grateful for you coming out midweek. But also, if you are interested in all the other things going on at Great Lakes, we have our top 3. It's right on our website. If you just go to greatlakeschurch.com, there's a button right on the homepage. It's going to help you stay in the loop with everything that's going on, because there's a ton of places for you to get community, tons of places for you to serve. So make sure you check that out every single week. All right?
Thanks for trusting us with some of your time today. We hope that whether you are finishing a workout, wrapping up your commute, or maybe sitting on the couch in a comfortable space with someone you care about, that you can walk away with something, take an action step in your faith journey. And then if you find yourself in the Southeast Wisconsin area, come join us at our Kenosha campus. Until then, you can find out a ton more about what we do and get more messages at greatlakeschurch.com or in the Great Lakes Church app. My name is Carson, and I'm so glad you're here. We'll look forward to seeing you next week.